If the company is appointing an individual auditor, that individual auditor can be appointed in the company for a maximum period of 5 years. And if the company is appointing some audit firm, the firm can be appointed for a maximum period of 10 years, right? So, whenever an individual auditor or an audit firm is appointed in any company, every year that appointment is required to be renewed. Okay, so it may so happen that whenever a company is supposed to renew the appointment of the individual auditor or the audit firm, it may not do so due to some issues or due to some reason. The company may think of discontinuing that auditor as an auditor of that particular company. So, or the company may also take the decision of removing the auditor in between its term. Anytime during its term, the auditor may take the decision that it is going to remove its auditor, or maybe the auditor himself may resign from the organization even within this term. So, if in any situation it may so happen that the auditor is discontinuing its operation with that particular company, maybe due to removal, or maybe due to resignation, or maybe due to non-continuation, discontinuation of their appointment, or maybe due to removal by the tribunal. So, in any of the situations, if the auditor has to discontinue their operation, what is the legal formality? What is the regulatory provision with respect to that? We will discuss it in my today's class. So, let us share the presentation, and then in a step-by-step fashion, I will discuss all these issues. So, in our today's lecture, the topic of discussion is removal, resignation of the auditor, giving special notice. This particular provision is discussed under section 140 of the Companies Act. Can you all see the presentation? Please confirm. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the first topic of discussion is removal before expiry of term under section 140 subsection 1. Any query, please let me know. So here the provision is the auditor who is appointed as per the provisions of section 139 may be removed from his office before the expiry of his term by passing a special resolution after obtaining the approval of the central government. So it means that whenever you are going to remove an auditor, you have to pass a special resolution in your annual general meeting. But in order to conduct that annual general meeting where you are going to remove the auditor, you will have to seek permission of the central government. Now, what is a special resolution? Usually, you know that in an annual general meeting, all the decisions are passed by casting of vote. So, if the majority is in favor of a particular resolution, that resolution is accepted. But in case of special resolution, the person in favor of removal should be three times more as compared to the person who are against the removal. Only then I can call such removal, such resolution as a special resolution. And another important criteria is there for considering a resolution as a special resolution is that uh, the matter of the resolution should also be mentioned in the notice for the annual general meeting, which is about to be called up. In that notice, you have to mention the topic or the point on which special resolutions will be taken. So now, in a particular meeting, in an annual general meeting, if you find that for that agenda, uh, the person in favor of it are three times more as compared to person against it, then that resolution will be passed as a special resolution and accordingly the decision will be implemented. But in order to conduct such AGM for removal of that auditor, you will first need to take the permission or the approval from the central government. So what is the process of removal? This process of removal is actually mentioned under Rule 7 of Companies Audit and Auditors Rule. So here it is mentioned that whenever the company is planning to remove an auditor, the decision first will be taken in a board meeting, because as the board of directors are the managers of the organization, they will first take the decision that whether or not to remove the auditor. So suppose that they have taken the resolution in their board meeting that yes, we are going to remove the auditor. So when they take such resolution, after taking it, they will have to apply to the central government within 30 days that we have taken in our board meeting this particular resolution that we are going to remove such director, such auditor. And in this ground, we seek your approval. Whenever they will be applying to the central government, they will have to issue a particular form. This form is called ADT2. ADT2. Okay, I will show you the form later. So in this form, they will have to mention the specific reason for which the company is seeking removal of the auditor. So if the central government provides its approval subject to necessary investigation of its own, only after that the AGM can be called up. And in that AGM, the special resolution will be taken with respect to removal of the auditor, and only then the auditor can be removed from the organization. So this is the procedure that you have to follow if the company wants to remove an auditor at any particular point of time within its term. Because when the term is going to end, the auditor will automatically be removed. The auditor can no longer perform his operation in the same company. But I am talking about the situation in which within the term the auditor is required to be removed. So as I have mentioned that you have to make the application to the central government in ADT2 along with the prescribed fees. The fees is mentioned in companies registration offices and fees rules 2014. And after getting the approval from the central government within 60 days, the company should hold the annual general meeting. Now, whenever you are going to remove the auditor, you should also provide him with the opportunity of being heard. The auditor should be able to provide an representation. Okay, I will talk about the process of representation in my next following slide. But one representation should come from the auditor that why he should not be removed. Okay, this particular opportunity should be provided to him, and that is also as per the provision of the Companies Act. Then filing of statements in case of resignation. I will talk about this particular section later, though it is as per section 140 subsection 2, but I will talk about resignation later. Let me first talk about this representation thing that I was talking about previously. This procedure of removal. Okay. So under section 140 subsection 4, it is mentioned that whenever you are supposed to refresh the appointment of the auditor at the end of each financial year, suppose in a particular financial year you thought that you are not going to continue with that auditor, you are going to remove that auditor. Whatever be the situation, you may discontinue with that particular auditor, or you may remove the auditor. Removal can take place at any time during the financial year, but discontinuation will take place only at the end of a particular financial year. So I am talking about a situation of discontinuation here. These things will also be applicable in case of removal as well. So all the provision that I am going to talk about now, they will all be applicable for removal as well. So in this situation, whenever the company is going to whenever the company is planning to discontinue with any auditor, they will send a special notice to the retiring auditor. Just a second. Okay. So in case of discontinuation, the company will send a special notice to the retiring auditor. So I mean that suppose one auditor you have appointed and uh, he has completed 1 year with your company, and at the end of the first year he will be classified as a retiring auditor. Usually what happens that as the total term for which you are going to be appointed is 5 years, at the end of each year the retiring auditor is reappointed. Okay, but if you think that no, from the following financial year I am not going to continue with this retiring auditor, so I'm going to take a new auditor in his place. So if you have this kind of thing in your mind, so what you will do, uh, you will have to send a special notice to the retiring auditor stating the fact that from the next financial year, we don't want to continue with you. So when the special notice is being sent to the retiring auditor will prepare his own representation that why he should continue in this company and why the company should not remove him. So he will prepare his representation and he will actually communicate this representation with the board of directors, and the board of directors will issue this representation, will actually send this copy of the representation to all the members, because ultimately in the annual general meeting the decision will be taken. So all the members, they have the right of knowing that exactly what is the representation from the auditor. So the company will send a copy of the representation to all the members. Along with it, they will also mention the fact that the retiring auditor has sent a representation in the notice of the AGM. But if the retiring auditor fails to provide such representation due to any default by the company concerned or due to the default by the auditor himself, in that case, the company may provide the auditor with the opportunity of representing this particular statement in the annual general meeting directly. So how this thing will be done? The auditor will stand up in the annual general meeting and he will read out his entire representation in the AGM. So this is how things are done. This is how you actually give an opportunity to the retiring auditor of being heard. Uh, Now, what are the situation in which this kind of special notice is required? You may consider of discontinuing a retiring auditor if you already have decided that you are going to appoint a new auditor in his place from the next financial year. That is one possibility. Or the second possibility is that you have provided expressly that the retiring auditor should not be reappointed. Okay, so in your previous meeting, it has been decided that this particular auditor who is supposed to retire in this financial year, he will not be reappointed. In any one of these two situations, you may have to send the special notice with respect to discontinuation of the auditor. But as I said, that if the auditor is about to complete his term of 5 years, in that case, such notice is not required because automatically, as per section 139, subsection 2, he will be uh, removed from the organization. He will have to discontinue his operation with the organization. And if it is an individual auditor, that period is 5 years. And if it is an audit firm, that period is 10 years. Now, when you actually send a special notice to the retiring auditor, he will send the representation as I already mentioned, and it has to be written and it will be of a reasonable length. And this, in this particular representation, he will also request the company to notify it to the members. because what I am trying to say, my point of view, that must be communicated to the members of the organization. So the auditor, they request the company, and by company I mean the board of directors of the company, to communicate this information to the members of the organization. And when the auditor is making such request, it is the duty of the company to mention the fact that the retiring auditor is going to make such representation, and also to send a copy of the representation to every member to whom the copy of the notice is sent. Okay. Uh, but
Sir, is this representation compulsory?
yes, this representation is compulsory. This representation is given as a right to the retiring auditor. If you are a retiring auditor and if the company is deciding that it is going to discontinue with it, in that case, Companies Act provides for it that one representation will be given by the retiring auditor. It's technically, as per the law, it is mandatory, you may say. But if the auditor thinks that no, we don't want to give any representation, then it will be treated as resignation. You will be removed subject to your representation given to the company concerned. But if you don't want to give any representation, in that case, it will be treated as a resignation, and in that case, it will be treated under a different provision, not under this one. I'm talking about a situation where you have communicated to your auditor that we don't want to continue with you in the next financial year, and I'm asking my auditor to provide a representation that why I should continue with you, and the auditor is proceeding likewise. Okay. Who was asking this?
Me.
Preeti. Okay. You got your answer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, as I said, that once the company receives the representation from the retiring auditor, it should mention the fact that the auditor has given such representation in the notice of the annual general meeting, and also it should send a copy of such representation to all the members. Okay, but it may so happen that the representation is received from the auditor very late. So it was received such a late at such a late period that it was not possible for the company to communicate this information to the members concerned. It may also be the default of the company. Okay, sometimes because I'm only stating the regulation here. If you are actually getting into some company, you will find out different types of mischievous activities that the companies get themselves involved into. You see that whenever you are trying to discontinue an auditor, it may be because of several reasons. Okay, maybe the auditor is too upright. The auditor is trying to identify all your financial falsifications. So the auditor is not very conducive for all the fraudulent practices that you had in your mind. So naturally, you do not want to keep that auditor in your company. So whenever you want to discontinue that auditor, you will have to ask them to provide a representation to the members of the company, because ultimately members will take the ultimate decision. Members means shareholders. They will take the ultimate decision. And the auditors, as per the provision of the law, they will send the representation to the board of directors as well. But just because the board of directors are not really good persons, so what they will do, they will simply delay the procedure. Maybe they will tell that we have not received the representation from the auditor yet, or even if they have received it, they will actually change the date of receipt, and accordingly they will not send the representation to the members. So these kinds of things may happen. So members may not get the copy of the representation beforehand, and if they don't get the copy, they will not be able to comprehend that why the company wants to discontinue this auditor. So for this kind of situation where due to company's default or maybe due to delay from the auditor, the representation is not received by the board of directors. So in that case, the auditor will be given the opportunity of reading out this particular statement in the annual general meeting. So as I said, that the auditors will simply stand up in the annual general meeting and they will read out their entire representation so that they can at least grab the attention of the members. Though I think you understand that reading out the representation is not same as that of sending the copy, because in the previous situation you could have actually influenced the decision of the members, but while you are reading it out, you may not actually draw the attention that much. And whenever you are reading out your representation, you also have to make sure that you are filing a copy with the registrar of the companies. Okay, so this is what you have to do. But in certain situation, there is a restriction on this particular right. That, as I said, that if the auditors, because of auditors default or because of companies default, if the representation is not being sent to the members, the auditor will have the right of reading it out in the annual general meeting. But there are certain restrictions to it as well. When such restriction will crop up, if the tribunal means NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal, it is entrusted with the responsibility of tackling all the legal issues with respect to company management. If the tribunal is satisfied on an application either of the company or of any other aggrieved person that the rights conferred to the auditor are being abused, the copy of the representation may not be sent and the representation need not be read out at the meeting. So what will happen? Suppose you are planning to discontinue an auditor, and at the same time you have also made an application to the tribunal that the auditor whom we want to discontinue, it has abused its right being an auditor. So the rights of the auditor are well mentioned in the Companies Act as well as in different standards on auditing. So if the company feels, if the company's board of director feels, or if any other stakeholder who have been aggrieved because of this kind of activity by the auditor feels that the auditors have abused their rights, they may directly write to the tribunal that we feel that the auditor has abused their right, and this right that the auditor has of reading out their representation in the annual general meeting or sending out a copy to the members, it should be taken away from them. Then, if the tribunal is satisfied on such application, then they may take away such right from the auditor. But once again, from the practical point of view, in many times it has been seen that if any company doesn't want to hold on to a particular auditor who is really morally upright, so in that case, they may get the tribunal officials in their own within their own group, and by providing different kinds of bribes and something like that, and they may get this approval from the tribunal that these auditors will not be allowed to share their representation with the members of the company. So this is how these things are done. So now I will go back to the resignation. So as I said, 2 points I have covered. One was section 140 subsection 1, another was section 140 subsection 4. In the first point, I talked about the process of removal of the auditor, and in the second thing, I told you about the process of such removal or the process of discontinuation. So as I have mentioned, if I have to put it in a nutshell, as I have mentioned, that if you want to remove an auditor or if you want to discontinue an auditor, you need to pass a special resolution in the annual general meeting. But you cannot call up such annual general meeting unless you have the approval from the central government. And before filing an application in the central government, you have to take your own board resolution. Only then you will have to you can actually go on through this particular procedure. And whenever you are taking a decision that you are going to remove or discontinue an auditor, you have to provide a special notice to them. And based on such notice, the auditor will be allowed to send their representation to the members of the company and also to read out such representation in the annual general meeting, unless they are specifically prohibited to do so by the tribunal. So this is the entire structure through which an auditor may be removed. Now I am talking about resignation. It may so happen that the company is not doing anything, but the auditor himself or the auditor itself is planning to resign from the organization. So how this particular procedure is going to be tackled under section 140 subsection 2. Let us see. So here it is said that if the auditor wants to resign from the company, it should file a statement with the board of directors in form ADT3. Okay. So in this particular form, the auditor should mention the reason and other relevant facts with regards to his resignation. Why does he or does it want to resign from such organization? What is basically the reason? There can be plenty of reasons for which the auditor wants to resign. Maybe the management is not cooperating. Maybe the auditor is coming up with some disclaimer of opinion. Maybe the auditor is having some other non-cooperation from the management, or maybe the management is coercing them to get into some fraudulent activities. So there can be plenty of reason for which the auditor may have to resign from the organization, or it could be auditor's own personal reason as well. Whatever be the reason, that must be clearly mentioned in ADT3 form. And this particular form must be filed with the company. By company, I mean the board of directors of the company, as well as it should also be filed with the registrar of companies. And if the company concerned is a government company, in that case, it should also be filed with the Comptroller and Auditor General of India under section 139, subsection 5. Within what time it should be filed? It should be filed within 30 days from the date of the resignation. So from the date on which you are planning to resign from the organization, within such date, within 30 days, you have to file this particular form. If you fail to file the form within 30 days, then you are subject to certain disciplinary action under section 140 subsection 3. What is the fine? The fine is lower of rupees 50,000 or an amount equal to his or its remuneration. The fine can be either 50,000 or the amount which the individual auditor, I said his because it can be an individual auditor, or it can be a firm, its remuneration. Lower of these two is going to be the punishment, or the fine that the auditor has to pay. And if the failure is of continuing nature, it means that after 30 days, the auditor failed to file that particular statement with those respective authorities, and how long this particular period is going on. So each day, 500 fine will be charged on the auditor, subject to a maximum of 5 lakh. Okay, so every day 500 will be charged. So let us say that initially when you fail to when you fail to file this particular statement with the ROC or with the company within 30 days, you will have to pay a fine of 50,000. Let us talk about this area where lower of these two is 50,000. So 50,000 is the fine. Along with it, on 31st day, you will have to pay a fine of 500. On 32nd day, you will have to pay a fine of 1,000. So in this way, it will go on till it reaches rupees 5 lakh. So the Companies Act thinks that it is never going to go beyond 5 lakh, because if it is going beyond 5 lakh, it means that 1,000 days have already passed, and usually it doesn't happen. So that is the reason why the maximum limit, the maximum cap that has been set, it is 5 lakh rupees. So based on which date you are filing the statement after 30 days, your total fine will be decided accordingly. And this provision has been incorporated in the Companies Amendment Act 2019. Then procedure of removal I have already stated. Now, finally, let us talk about directions for change of auditors under section 140 subsection 5. So this is a situation when uh, the tribunal, NCLT, they direct the company to change their auditor for their alleged involvement in fraud based on some application made by the company concerned or by any other aggrieved party. If the tribunal uh, takes such decision that the auditor was involved in a particular fraud, then the auditor may be removed. The auditor will be changed based on the direction given by the tribunal itself. And there are three situations in which this kind of thing may take place. Either it can take place suo moto. Suo moto means that whenever the court is going to take its own action, The court will not wait for someone's application. The court will do its own necessary investigation, and if the court finds out that the auditor was involved in any fraudulent activity, it will provide a direction to the company for its removal. That is called suo motu. The tribunal can also provide such direction based on application by the central government. The central government directly may apply to the tribunal that please remove this particular director from this company. That can also happen, or it can be based on, as I said previously, based on application by a person concerned. Now, this application for changing an auditor, it can be given by someone inside the organization or maybe outside the organization, but he has to be an aggrieved party. He has to be a stakeholder of the organization who has been aggrieved due to the fraudulent activities of the auditor. Once the tribunal directs the company to change an auditor, the company is forced to change it or with immediate effect. And once the change is made, the auditor concerned will not be eligible to be appointed in any other company for another period of 5 years. So if the tribunal is giving the direction to the company that please change auditor A, then I'll have to remove auditor A on that instant. And from that date, the auditor A will not be able to join any other organization as an auditor for a period of 5 years. What are the situations in which such directions may be used? First, the tribunal has got reasons to believe that the auditor has directly or indirectly acted in a fraudulent manner. Now, what do I mean by fraudulent manner, or what are the different circumstances of fraud with respect to auditing? That is not a scope of my discussion today, but you may understand one thing from your common understanding that whenever the auditors are auditing an organization, they will constantly be influenced by the management that provide us with a clean report. Even if there are some falsification, manipulations in the financial statement, the management may sometimes pursue the auditor to provide clean report, because in many a situation, the investors, maybe the large investors or maybe the retail investors, they take their financial decision based on the auditor's report, because auditor's report is always considered to be an independent report on the financial statement of the organization. Auditor can never go wrong. So this is somewhat a belief among the investors' mind. So if the auditor misutilizing this particular belief is collaborating with the management based on certain financial arrangement or something like that, and they are providing some fraudulent report, despite the fact that the report should be qualified, they are issuing unqualified report to the shareholders. In that case, it can be treated as a fraudulent activity on the part of the auditor. Exactly what happened in case of this Satyam scam in 2008, and the two auditors, the two engagement partners, the auditor in the company was PricewaterhouseCoopers. But you know that whenever any particular audit firm is engaged to perform audit in any particular company, there should be some engagement partners who should actually perform the audit, right? So the two engagement partners who were actually convicted of the fraudulent activities, they were S. Gopalakrishnan and Mr. Talluri Srinivas. I think the case is still sub judice, and the proceedings are going on against them. So these are the two engagement partners who actually acted as auditor um, on behalf of PwC. So they were clearly identified as person who acted in fraudulent manner. Sometimes the auditor may not act in the fraudulent manner, but they may abet or collude with the management members or any other directors or any other officers of the company. And this particular fraud will be reflected in the final financial statement as well. Abetting or colluding means that you know that the fraudulent things are going on, but you are keeping your eyes shut. You are not looking at it, you are not identifying it. So in this way, if you are found out that you are involved in any kind of fraudulent activity, in that case the tribunal will issue such direction of changing the auditor of the company. And if the Central government has made an application to the tribunal for change in the auditor. In that case, the tribunal has to be satisfied uh, that this particular change is necessary as per the provision that I have just stated in the previous slide. If the tribunal is satisfied that the application made by the government is appropriate and the change of the auditor is necessary, in that case, it is going to issue an order within 15 days of receipt of such application. So, from the date of application, within 15 days, they are going to issue an order subject to necessary investigation and ask the central government to appoint another auditor in his place. You understand this part very clearly that whenever the central government feels that the auditor in a particular company, and precisely in government companies, they are not acting as per the provisions of the law and they are acting in a fraudulent manner, they will send an application to the tribunal that please change such auditor. So the tribunal is going to make the necessary investigation to that effect, and within 15 days they will issue an order. And whenever they are issuing the order, they will also instruct the central government to appoint an auditor in his place who will actually hold the office till the next AGM. And in the next AGM, as you know, that in case of government company, the period is 1 year. So in the next AGM, a new auditor will be appointed, subject to approval from the shareholders. Disqualification of auditor from further appointment, as I said, that once the tribunal is giving such direction that you have to change the director, so from that date up to 5 years period, the auditor will not be eligible for appointment in any other company, and at the same time he will be liable for action. He will be liable, different liabilities will be imposed upon him under section 447. So these are the provisions for disqualifications of auditor. So now I end my presentation here, but before ending my discussion on removal, resignation of auditor, I will just like to show you the two forms that I have just mentioned, just to give you the idea that exactly how these uh, forms look like. Can you see form ADT2? Please
Yes, sir.
confirm. ADT2. Okay. So in Form ADT2, as mentioned, Rule 7, Subsection 1, Companies Audit and Auditors Rules 2014, the company has to mention its CIN, GLN, all the numbers. Then it has to mention its name, address, email ID, service request number of relevant special resolution. Okay, so there they have to mention the date when the form is being filed, date of passing the special resolution, and date of annual extraordinary general meeting. These two parts, C and D, they will not be filled in right now because this is an application to the central government. Only when central government will give such approval, only then these two dates can be written. Details of the application clearly indicating the grounds for seeking removal of auditor. Okay, now here comes the actual discussion. So why do you seek removal of the directors? This is the first question. So here the board of directors are going to write the specific reason why do you need removal. And the following question will actually support or go against this answer in number 4. Like in number 5, they are asking that whether the accounts have been qualified during the last 3 years. Okay. So if yes, give details. So now if you're writing that yes, it was qualified, then the authorities, the central government, they may feel that maybe that could be one of the possible reasons for which you are applying for removal, because you are getting the qualified report from the auditor. So that is one way through which you may check your observation. Then details of opportunity given to the auditor concerned for being heard, as I said, that whether you have given the special notice to the auditor for providing his representation, whether any civil or criminal proceedings are pending between the company and the concerned officers, Yes, no, if yes, give complete details. So that can also be one of the reasons for which you may want to remove your auditor, because you don't want to disclose this kind of civil or criminal proceeding that is going on within your company. Date of appointment of the concerned auditor and SRN of notice of his appointment and period for which the auditor was appointed. This is just objective information you have to provide. Whether any special notice has been received for removal of auditors, yes or no. If yes, the date of receipt of notice and the percentage of capital held by the members giving such notice, or percentage of the number of members in case of company limited by members. Whether all due audit fee has been paid to the concerned auditors. If no, mention the amount of arrears. That is also another very important point. Suppose you are not in a position to pay your auditors. The audit fee that the auditors are charging, you are not in a position to pay them off, or you think that the fees is too high for your organization. Maybe you thought that in your company you should recruit PwC, but once recruiting PwC, you are now thinking that PwC is charging a very higher price from us. We cannot afford it. So naturally, you may take the decision of removing PwC and appoint someone new. So that part should also be reflected through your application. Details of other services uh, being rendered by such auditors to the company. Okay, so that is also another important parameter, that what are the other non-audit services being provided by the organization. Like we know that as per section 144 of the Companies Act, the auditors are not supposed to provide a certain non-audit services to the organization, because it is believed that non-audit services create self-review threat to their independence. That there is a possibility that they will be auditing the work that they themselves have prepared. So, in order to do away with this particular problem, the auditor may actually, the company may actually have to provide information with respect to these parameters, and accordingly, they will have to clarify on this issue. Company or board of directors. Then finally, they have to provide their verification that I am authorized by the BOD of the company by resolution number dated as such and such. So here, whenever you are mentioning the resolution number, you have to mention the board resolution. As I mentioned, that first you have to take the board resolution, and then it should go on to the central government for approval. So here you have to mention the board resolution number with date, and then you have to mention the relevant provisions of the Companies Act, and finally you have to provide your designation, BIN, Director Identification Number, and put your signature. The copy of the special resolution, then details of the grounds for seeking removal of the auditor, minutes of the annual general meeting or extraordinary general meeting, and then other optional attachments if there is any. So that will all be attached with it. And if you are looking at the ADT3, can you see the ADT3 form?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in ADT3 form, once again the same information are required to be provided, and over here the category of the auditor will be mentioned, the individual of the firm, and then the information with respect to their PAN, name of the auditor, membership number, address, city, state, PIN code, email ID, everything will be mentioned. Then reasons for resignation, as I said, that why exactly the auditor is planning to come up with resignation, that should also be mentioned, and the letter of designation should be attached with it, and any other facts which are relevant that will also be mentioned. And here this part should be declared by the auditor concerned. You must remember one thing, that ADT2 will be filed by the board of directors, ADT3 will be filed by the auditor. So here the signature will be of the auditor, and the auditor will mention that I hereby confirm that the information given in this form and its attendance are correct and complete. So all the generic statements that are to be provided. And here you have to mention that whether you are an associate or fellow, because usually you know that if you're a chartered accountant, you can either be a fellow chartered accountant, FCA, or ACA. So you have to mention your exact status, being the partner of the audit firm, and along with it, you have to provide certain attachments, and that will be all. So this is your ADT3 form. Any query? কারো কোনো query আছে? Any queries, anyone? If you don't have any query, at least I expect this from you guys, that at least you will, someone of you will unmute yourself and tell me that we don't have any query. At least you must do this. It's courtesy. Okay.
So no query for now.
Okay. ঠিক আছে, we will check it during our class test. So as you don't have any query and I still have 10 minutes left, so I just would like to start with our next presentation. Eligibility, qualification, and disqualification. If you had query, then I could have discussed with it, but as you don't have any, so let us start with our next presentation here. And that topic is eligibility, qualifications, and disqualifications of auditor under section 141. So what are the eligibility to be appointed as an auditor? This is discussed under section 141. I guess you are not being able to see this now. Just a second.
Yes, sir.
Can you see the presentation now? Can you see it changing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you are appointing an individual auditor as an auditor in your company, then only a CA in practice is eligible for appointment as an auditor of a company. Who is a CA in practice? First of all, you have to hold the degree Chartered Accountant from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and you have to obtain the practicing license from the ICAI. You have to obtain the practicing license. Without having the license, you cannot be called up as a CA in practice. So if you are a CA in practice, then you are eligible to be appointed as an individual auditor of the company. You see that in the database maintained by EIRC, Eastern India Regional Council, there is a list of all the individual as well as partnership firms of chartered accountants. So over there, if you are taking any particular individual auditor as the auditor of your company, you just have to fulfill the criteria of being a place in that particular database. So that database is all about the practicing CAs. So any CA you can pick up, you can contact him, and you can take him as your auditor. And if you are appointing an audit firm, in that case, you have to ensure that a firm whereof majority of the partners practicing in India are qualified for appointment in a company by its firm name. Okay, so it means that suppose you are appointing an audit firm. So in this firm, the majority of the partners, suppose in this firm there are three partners, two of them should be practicing CAs. Practicing CA होते होंगे because only then I can actually qualify them as eligible members for being appointed as an auditor of the company. So if the majority of the partners in an audit firm are eligible for appointment as auditor in a particular company, only then the firm altogether is eligible for appointment in that particular company in its firm name. So whenever I'll be appointing a firm fulfilling this criteria, then I will not be appointing any particular auditor, any particular individual member. I will be appointing the firm altogether. Okay, suppose one of the name of the firm is ABC and Associates. So in this particular firm, the partner A and partner B, both of them are practicing CAs. So naturally, ABC and Associate is eligible for appointment in the company in its own name, in the firm's name. So whenever I will be appointing the firm, I will not be appointing either partner A or partner B or partner C. I will be appointing directly ABC and Associate. The entire firm will come and audit the organization. Now, who from the firm is going to come and audit my accounts, that will be decided by the firm only. I cannot make any comment over there. Sometimes some firm can also be in the form of LLP. Okay, LLP means Limited Liability Partnership. Though technically it is a partnership form, but it has got certain feature of that of a company. LLP is controlled by LLP Act 2008. So in this act, the provision with respect to appointment on any other things are also mentioned. So if a LLP is appointed as an auditor of the company, only the partners who are CAs are authorized to act and sign on behalf of the firm. So this part is very important here, that if your firm is a partnership firm, and in this firm, maybe the majority of the partners are eligible for appointment as an individual auditor. But in this particular situation, anyone from the firm, anyone, maybe that person is not a CA, but he will be eligible to sign on behalf of the firm. Maybe the audit has been done by partner A and partner B, and partner C can put his signature on behalf of the firm, because here partner C is not signing anything. Here the entire firm is signing. But if I am appointing an LLP, Limited Liability Partnership, as an auditor of my company, in that case, only the person who are CAs, who are CA in practice, only they will be authorized to put their signature, and they will be authorized to act as an auditor in the company concerned. Anyone else who are not CAs from the LLP, they will not be able to perform their role as an auditor. So this is the main provision with respect to LLP, which is also categorized as an audit firm. Then let us talk about the disqualification requirement. Let us start with initial disqualification. So whenever you are going to appoint an auditor, you first have to look into, yes.
Sir, can't audit firm, is it be a company or only be only LLP and partnership or individual?
কি বুঝতে পারলাম না, আরেকবার বলো।
মানে বলছি স্যার, একটা অডিট ফার্ম যেমন ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল বা পার্টনারশিপ বা এলএলপি হচ্ছে, তাহলে একটা কি অডিট ফার্ম কোম্পানি ফর্ম হতে পারে?
না, হয় না ইউজুয়ালি। তার কারণটা হচ্ছে যে অডিট ফার্মের নেচার অফ অপারেশনটা ইজ নট দ্যাট অফ এ কোম্পানি। আর কোম্পানির রিকোয়ারমেন্ট অনুযায়ী যে যে রিকোয়ারমেন্ট গুলো লাগে একটা পার্টিকুলার ইয়েতে, সেটা ইউজুয়ালি কোম্পানি হয় না। তবে সেক্ষেত্রে যেটা তুমি বলতে পারো আর কি, তুমি যদি সেই রকম লেভেলে ভাবো যে whether it is coming up with public issues or not, something like that, what are the requirements that are fulfilled by the company, সেইটা ইউজুয়ালি অডিট ফার্ম গুলো করে না। কারণ তুমি যে কোনো বড় অডিট ফার্মের কথাই বলো, পিডব্লিউসি বলো বা যে কোনো বলো, সেগুলো কোম্পানি ফর্মে ইনকর্পোরেশন মানে কিন্তু এখন অব্দি হয়নি। মানে দে আর লার্জ অর্গানাইজেশন, বাট দে আর স্টিল হ্যাভ নট বিন ইয়েট incorporated as a company form. তো সেই জায়গায় সেখানে কিন্তু ওইভাবে আলাদা করে শেয়ার হোল্ডার্স, আদার পার্টনার্স এরকম ভাবে নেই, এখনো কিন্তু ফর্মটা সেই পার্টনার্স হিসেবেই আছে, এনগেজমেন্ট পার্টনার্স, আদার অ্যাক্টিভিটিস পার্টনার্স এইভাবেই আছে। মানে কোম্পানি ফর্মে এখন অব্দি আমি মানে অ্যাটলিস্ট অ্যাজ ফার অ্যাজ আই নো আই এম নট ভেরি শিওর, বাট স্টিল আই লুক ইনটু ইট যে অন্য কোনো কান্ট্রিতে অন্য কোনো ভাবে এই ফর্মে আছে কি। মানে অন্তত ইন্ডিয়ার ক্ষেত্রে আমি বলতে পারি যে এখন অব্দি কোম্পানি ফর্মে এখন অব্দি কনস্টিটিউটেড হয়নি।
Okay, sir.
So initial disqualification requirement that I will first talk about is with respect to the capacity. Okay. First of all, the question asked by Protik: a body corporate other than a LLP registered under the LLP Act 2008. Okay. So a body corporate মানে হচ্ছে একটা কোম্পানি যেটা জিজ্ঞেস করা হচ্ছে যে এখানে হতে পারে কিনা। তো ইটস এ ডিসকোয়ালিফিকেশন, ইউ ক্যানট অ্যাকচুয়ালি অ্যাপয়েন্ট এ কোম্পানি অ্যাজ ইউর অডিটর। So that is the first disqualification with respect to capacity. But as I said, that LLP is slightly a particular is a, it can be traced back to the nature of the company to some extent. So in that case, you can appoint an LLP, but not a body corporate. Company cannot be appointed as an auditor of the company, and that is as per section 141 subsection 3 clause A. An officer or employee of the company, so the company in which the auditor are supposed to be appointed, if any officer or employee holding the certificate of practice, if they want to provide the function of auditing to such company, that is not allowed. So I am working in a company, I am a CA, I am a practicing CA, but I am not practicing right now, and I am working as an officer of the company. I thought that I'll be providing the audit services to the company. It is not allowed as per section 141 subsection 3 clause B. A person who is a partner or who is in the employment of an officer or employee of the company. So as I said, that an officer or the employee of the company directly he cannot provide the audit services to the company. Likewise, any partner or any employee of such officer or such employee, they may not also be able to provide the audit services in the same company as per section 141 subsection 3 clause C. So any query, please let me know. কোনো query থাকলে জানাও। Then disqualification, financial relationship. I will start with this later, but with respect to disqualification capacity, let me just tell this last 2 points: officer or employee of the company. Let us say that in a particular company, the managing director, he is a CA, okay, and he has also obtained the practicing license from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Now, if he was not the managing director of the company, if he was not the managing director of the company, he would have been eligible to be appointed as an auditor of the company. But just because he is the MD, he will not be entitled to do so. Likewise, suppose the MD, he is also associated with some other organization, okay, and in that organization, another member, another person who is related to him in this professional capacity, he is the practicing CA. Now, if I say, if the Companies Act, according to the Companies Act provision, if I think that I am going to, yes, I can understand that I cannot appoint the MD as an auditor of my own company. But if I want to appoint that another person who is a partner of the MD in some other business venture as an auditor in my own company, that is also not allowed. Just because that practicing CA is a partner of an employee or officer of my own company, so it could actually create a huge self-interest threat to independence. What do I mean by self-interest threat? It means that whenever any person who is very much related to the employee or officer of the organization is coming to audit the organization, So they will not be able to perform their independent audit. Every time they will have to refer to their boss, or maybe to their relative, or maybe to their partner in the same organization. Do you really think that if the auditor, as I have mentioned, if he comes to audit the organization, he will not talk to the MD? Every time he will have to have some interaction with the MD, and as the MD is related with him in some other sphere, he will have this capacity of influencing his decision. So naturally, you should not be allowed to be an auditor of the same company. So this is how things are done. So I don't have the scope of discussing the threats to independence with you, because that is not the part that I'm teaching you. But I will actually tell you about different types of threats that are faced by the auditors during its appointment process and how to resolve the same. So this is one such threat the auditor might have faced if he was a partner of any other officer or the employee of the organization, and the Companies Act through this particular provision is trying to stop it. So this was a disqualification with respect to capacity of the auditor. কারো কোনো কোয়েরি থাকলে জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারো. Any query, anyone?
No, sir.
Okay. So let me just take your attendance now. Okay, done. So if you don't have any other queries, so you may leave now. Thank you.